Just 24 hours ago, at the end of Valentine's Day, OM Systems announced the Olympus OM1, a Micro Four Thirds camera capable of many improvements, taking the best of what they had to offer, putting it in a new camera body with a new sensor. It's truly an amazing camera. It's very powerful. It's got many wow capabilities, but this video is not about that. So 24 hours later, it's time to turn our attention to the GH6. Panasonic Lumix's GH6, a camera that's going to be announced on the 21st. Well, let's take a look at this camera, and I mean it literally. We've got some photos leaked from Asobinet and also relayed to us by 4/3 Rumors. And this front image here is in very good detail. It's very, very clear. This is not some sort of grainy image. I mean, look at it. That's the GH6. There it is. 5 years of waiting, 5 long years of patience. And there it is. This is, behold, the GH6, naked, without a lens attached. It's beautiful. It's got a nice design. I like this design. It reminds me of that classical design. In fact, it reminds me of Olympus's first OM1. Now let's take a look at a different view. Now this is also from the front, but we can see it's got a massive, beautiful lens on the front there. Just an absolutely wonderful camera. Or is it? Well, we're going to have to wait until next week to find out for sure. Now, in terms of video specs, it certainly looks like it's got the OM1 beat. 4K at 120 frames per second, 5.7K. We don't know if that's anamorphic or if that's actually an oversampled rate. Again, we'll have to wait until the 21st to know for sure. It does 10-bit 422 internal. The only question for us is, how much has Panasonic or Lumix improved on the autofocus system? This is the thing that fans and critics alike have been wanting to know about, to be curious about. Did they completely switch the autofocus system? And they didn't. They've said time and time again they weren't going to switch it. Many of us had hoped and wondered, would they surprise us? But they didn't. They've stuck with depth from defocus, contrast detect autofocus system, a system that literally hunts to nail the focus. But they say it's much better this time around. All the leaked rumors are indicating that it is much improved over previous versions. But what does that mean? We'll have to wait until the 21st. But at least now we have some photos, and I think this is a way of sort of getting the attention away from OM1. And I did a review earlier today. It's looking to be a pretty amazing camera from a still standpoint. It's a very, very solid camera, and their autofocus system, I think the only thing it doesn't track is boats. It does planes and helicopters, cars and motorcycles, eyes of pretty well any kind, cats, dogs, pets, human eyes, bird eye focus. It pretty well does everything. Trains, freight trains, bullet trains. But I was disappointed there was no boat or steamship autofocus. And I know what you're thinking. Boats don't move very fast. Well, steamships don't. But you know what? I used to have a neighbor, and he would laugh at that comment. I remember going out one of the first boats. He said, hey, let's go for a ride in this thing. And it was a small boat. It wasn't very big. The engine, though, almost took up half the size of the boat. And we took it out, and we were doing 92 miles an hour. That's almost 160 kilometers on water where you're no more than a few feet above the surface. It's a pretty freaky feeling. Anyhow, there's no boat autofocus in the OM1. So I wonder how the GH6 is going to do. But a lot of us are kind of thinking and talking about how these are competing with each other, but I see these as very, very, I see it as the yin to the yang. The OM1 is very much about stills. It's for photographers going adventurers. It's designed for rugged environments, for very cold, for very hot, for very rainy. It has IP53, so it has protection against dust, but also water being thrown at it kind of stuff. So heavy rains, the kind of moisture you would get if you were on the Maid of the Mist or the Hornblower at Niagara Falls. And I can tell you, I've been there. It feels like you're in a torrential rainstorm, especially when that mist of water is blown right onto you. The OM1 is an incredibly powerful stills camera that does good video. But I see everything about the OM1 focused on the still side with good video, where I see the GH6 is owning the video side of things, with waveforms, vector scopes. I do think that the GH6 is going to provide better video capabilities. We already know it's going to do 4K 120. We know that the OM1 cannot. We know it's going to do 5.7K video. We just don't know if that's anamorphic or oversampled 4K. We do know now that the OM1 will provide, I think it's 5K oversampled 4K. But you see the trend here? It's not that the OM1 is better than the GH6 or that the GH6 is better than the OM1. It's that one is better in photo and one is better in video. And it's almost like yin and yang as they come together. One can admire one and say, yeah, you know what? The OM1 is a very, very impressive micro four thirds stills hybrid camera with a heavy emphasis on stills. Whereas the GH6, from what we know, from what Panasonic has told us in the development announcement, from its video capabilities, for the price point, well, we don't know if it's going to be $2,500 or somewhere between $2,000 and $2,500. But to be able to produce 4K 60 unlimited, remember the R6 can do 4K 60, 5.1K oversample 4K, but it has that overheating issue, so it's not as reliable, whereas the GH6 is supposed to be able to do it unlimited within its operating environment, which is more than the GH6. And with a dramatically reduced rolling shutter, again, the A7 IV, Sony's A7 IV, has a pretty bad rolling shutter. So I get it. These are micro four thirds cameras, but let's focus on the capabilities that these cameras can provide. If they can provide very good detailed 4K video, oversampled 4K video, 4K 120, and it's detailed, well, does it make it inferior to the R6 or the A7 IV just because they happen to be full-frame cameras? Of course not. It's always about the outcomes. It's what we can do with the tools when we put them in our hands. How does a simple memory card, for example, allow us to produce incredible results? How does a camera, how does a lens? I get it. I get the science. I get the data points. I understand about full frame. It's why I own one. But to say that micro four thirds is an inferior and that who on earth would pay over $2,000 for micro four thirds? Now, you see, if the GH6 can produce oversampled 4K that's detailed, has excellent dynamic range, has very good low light performance, produces great log, produces great detail, well, isn't that what we care about? Do we really care what the badge is? We care about what it's capable of, what's inside. I mean, isn't that what we tell our children? It's what's inside matters. And I think for these cameras, it's the same thing. I was very interested. I was starting to get very excited about both of these cameras. And now that we got the announcement of the OM1, I'm still very much excited by it. The only problem I had with the OM1 is that, well, they kept telling us it was going to be a wow camera. Whenever you start off that way, you start thinking, well, the best we have on the market right now is 8.6 oversampled 8K, so maybe they'll do 8K. The Nikon Z9 can do 120 frames per second, so maybe they can do more. It starts going, and I think let's forget the wow camera. Let's look at what the OM1 can do from a stills capabilities in pretty well any environment. And in their 26-minute promo this morning, where they're showing off how it can perform in different climates and how much water they're throwing at this thing, and how it can produce really good results, good stills, and how the autofocus is much improved. I think OM Systems, the Olympus OM1, is a very, very solid camera. And I think many of you that have been waiting for the GH6 are going to be very, very happy with it. And if you shoot manual mode, you don't even have to worry about what the autofocus is going to be because you don't care. It's for the rest of us. For those of us who are on the outside that don't have a camera that are looking for something new. For those of us with a GH5, a GH4, a GH5S that are looking at the GH6 and wondering, could this be our next camera? Well, we don't have too much time to go now. It is currently, I shouldn't have pressed that button. I don't have my watch on. Let me take a look here. Sorry, I don't have my glasses on. Now I do. It's the 15th. And for just a few hours more, the 21st isn't too long away. I'm really excited by this. I'm really looking forward to this announcement. And I think this is kind of like watching the World Series or the World Cup. Whatever it is that you enjoy in sports, when your team is knocked out, isn't it a little bit more relaxing? You can sit back and you watch the other teams, and then you can just focus on the energy of the game and how well each side performs. You're not getting frustrated. You're not getting worked up because your team's no longer there, so you can truly enjoy the game for the way it was meant to be enjoyed. And for me, that's where I am right now. I have the R5. I'm happy with it. I'm not looking at getting another camera right now. So I can look at both of these cameras like a kid through a candy shop, or like myself when I was younger looking into the computer store wondering if I could afford that brand new Amiga 3000, or when I was looking at buying a Corvette for my 37th birthday. Yeah, it took a lot of hemming and hawing, but I eventually did it when they announced the specs for the 2008 Corvette, and I did end up getting one. I had the first one in the country. And I took 5 weeks off to enjoy the countryside. But the point I'm trying to get to here is the GH6, I think, is going to be a really wonderful camera in terms of the video it's going to produce. They've had 5 years to work on this, and they know they have a tall bar to achieve. It's not going to beat the S series, but it might give us an indication as to what might come next in the S series. In the OM1, I think Olympus has done well. I keep calling them Olympus, and as long as they keep putting that Olympus name on their camera, I'm going to keep calling them Olympus too. Now, just one thing before I go, I want to let you know that I'm doing a giveaway. At the end of the month, I'm going to be giving away a 160 gigabyte Angelbird AV Pro Mark II, or, where's the 500 gig? I should really have my glasses on for this, or a 500 gig AV Pro Mark II as well. The AV Pro, the 512 gig, is more than sufficient for doing 8K 60 frames per second on the R5C, 8K on the R5, 8K on the Nikon Z9. Sony Alpha 1, sorry, these are Type Bs. They won't work on, they don't have a Type A product, but I'm giving one of these away at the end of the month, and all you have to do is subscribe. You have to be at least 18 years of age, and you just have to be living somewhere on this planet with a mail address. If you're living off-world, you're on El Centauri, Mars, or enjoying Pluto, I'm sorry, we can't deliver there. UPS, FedEx, Canada Post don't deliver off-world. But anyhow, you can find the details in the description down below, but just simply subscribe. That's it. I'm shipping anywhere in the world. This is open to anybody, and that's just a way of saying thank you for supporting the channel. And Angelbird provided these along with some review gear, and I thought, let's just make it available as a contest and give you guys something to be excited about. But that's all I have for now. It's late. I don't want to be up too late tonight, but I will stick around for some comments because I'm curious to know what you think of these two cameras. One, are you going to be getting the GH6 regardless? Are you looking at a Micro Four Thirds sensor? Are you looking at upgrading from Olympus, or are you coming completely out of left field and you've never owned a camera? Or like me, are you just looking at this for the sheer enjoyment of watching new technology come to market that, once again, is better than what came before it? Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.